I want to do a quick survey. How many of you have hit send and then like 5 minutes later completely freaked out because you realized that something was wrong? Okay. So the reason I bring that up is we've all been there. We've all experienced it, and it kind of just is a part of what we do and who we are, unfortunately. So what we're going to talk a little bit about today is these three very brave souls have agreed to share some examples of some of their best learnings. That's how I like to categorize it. Not so much failures, but best learnings that they have experienced over time. So real quick, Steve already introduced me. I have been at AVO for 2 months now, so, you know, pretty new. But previously to that, I ran the email programs for classmates.com and Intellius.com. They're part of the same company. So why don't you guys just run down the line and say who you are and what you do.
Rich Mastriani, I'm Director of Digital Experience with AmTrust Financial. I've been there for 16 months now. Prior to this, I was mostly on the search side, so this whole experience is a very new experience for me, much of a learning experience.
Hi, Brian Mathis with Edward Jones. Been with Edward Jones for 19 years now in digital marketing the whole time, so certainly have seen a lot of change and my fair share of things that we may or may not talk about today. Today I'm responsible for all of our digital activities for attracting new clients, but I've spent much of my time on our digital services for serving existing clients. That's where these examples come from this morning.
And my name is Jamie Plankenhorn. I am on the consumer email team at Zillow. I've been there for about 4.5 years. And like I said, consumers, so focusing primarily on our homeowners and shoppers, buyers, sellers, and renters.
Excellent. So we're going to kick this off. And we do have a couple of visuals just to help reiterate the learning, not the failure. So we're going to start with Jamie. She's going to give us a quick overview of 2 of her big learnings from the last couple of years. Jamie, don't panic when I pull them up on the slides.
My heart's racing a little bit.
I know. It's you never lose that feeling.
You don't. It's true. Okay, so are you going to just go for it? Is that what we're doing?
Where am I supposed to point it?
Did it click?
It's giving me a green light.
It's like a cell phone. You have to hold up your leg, too.
I know, seriously. Do you want to just click ahead one? There we go.
Okay, so this visual makes me feel a little spittily just looking at it. So this was a redesign of an app email that we sent to people in our welcome series. So I think it was within a week of signing up, we asked them to download our app for daily listings just for you in the app, I think is the subject line of this email. And it was our first time doing UGC, and so we partnered with LiveClicker and thought that we were so smart pulling in 4- and 5-star reviews from the App Store based on device. So if you were on an Apple, you would get the iOS review. If you were on Android, you would get an Android review. Most recent 4- or 5-star review. Filtered for 4 and 5 stars and like some basic, cuss words and stuff like that. What we didn't anticipate was somebody either changing their 5-star review to app crashes upon open, or just flat out putting a 5-star review with that subject or with that title. So it ended up in an email for approximately 1 to 1.5 hours between the hours of like 7 and 8:30 on a Tuesday, and about 1,500 people saw it. So all in all, you're like, whew, not bad story, right? No, it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there. Somebody forwarded it to their sibling who thought it would be funny to post it on Reddit. It was great, yeah. So they posted it on Reddit, which spun it up on Twitter, which spun it up on Pinterest. So my day started with my manager forwarding an email from one of our executives that said, "Is this a joke? Did we really send this?" So that was a day that I actually thought I would just turn in my laptop and be like, "Nope, thank you, friends. I'm done. I'm out." But I'm still here. And what I learned is that you don't trust UGC.
And we'll get to the learnings in a minute, I promise. So that's Jamie's number 1 example. Number 2?
So this email just went out a couple months ago. We call these kind of emails eye candy. Big, beautiful homes, big, beautiful pictures. It was a roundup of international floating homes, something that has performed very well. Unique homes performed very well for us content-wise in the past. So we were excited. Everybody was signed off on this email. Everyone was really excited to send it. It sent, I think it was like August 26th of this year. I don't know if any of you remember, Hurricane Harvey hit that weekend. Yeah, it wasn't awesome. So this email was in people's inboxes when actual homes started floating, and that was not our intention at all. And so we got a pretty hefty backlash on social media on Sunday and Monday, which was hard because the email went out on Saturday before the storm hit and before we really knew the ramifications of what was going to happen. So we have some learnings on this one too.
Wait to pull it up till I tell my story.
Yeah. Now we're gonna move. Oh, so do you want to tell your story first?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all right.
I will hold back on hitting the clicker.
I'll
Go for it.
I'll get a better laugh if I get to tell the story first before you pull up the
That's
image.
true.
So. All right, so most of the emails that Edward Jones sends out is to our existing clients, and we've been working for 10 years now to try to convince our clients to sign up for electronic delivery of their account documents. Obviously, for anybody with a brokerage or investment account, you know it's a paper-intensive industry, right? So we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 million clients signed up for statement delivery. Our statement emails, they usually look pretty good. One thing we had been wanting to change for some time was including we've included a picture of their financial advisor in the emails because it's a virtual touch point with somebody that they really only see in person maybe once or twice a year. But on my new team I'm working on, I said we need to solve this color photo issue once and for all. We've had black and white photos for 20 years on the website. Let's get color photos of our FAs, and while we're at it, let's get them in high def so we don't have to revisit this anytime soon. I forgot where our statements were pulling their photos from. So I wish I could say this was a long ago example. This was last month. This was the October statement insert that went out to a little over 1 million of our clients.
You ready?
I'm ready. Hello. If you can't tell, this photo took
Not
up
scaled.
most of the screen. On mobile, you had to scroll to reach his tie. And the way this went down, we absolutely test, even though this is a pretty standard email that we send out every month. We change the month and the subject and everything. So we tested on the Friday going into statements weekend. On Saturday, we upgraded our photo database, and on Sunday afternoon, we finished statements and sent out this email. And when I saw it in my own inbox, I knew exactly what had happened. So classic case of left hand not knowing what right hand was doing. So.
Yeah, we'll get more to that. Do you want me to hold on the next example, or do you want me to just click through?
Sure, I'll tee it up. So this situation here, this is 2015, preparing for a large regulatory change that was going to affect all of our clients. And the message from the firm was, we're going to have to get in touch with all of our clients rather rapidly because they're going to need to communicate with us. They're going to need to e-sign some documents as it pertains to their retirement accounts. So legal, is it okay? Can we handle this through email? Legal said, sure, you can have clients do all sorts of things through email as long as you're positive you've got the right email for your client. So we started building out this email verification process, trying to get ahead of this regulation that no one knew when it was going to drop, but when it did, it was going to be a big deal. Suffice to say, we rushed. It was complicated, and we skimped in an area that, in hindsight, and we'll talk about this, shouldn't have skimped in terms of client experience. Our branches were saying, what can we do to get ahead of this? What can we do to be helpful? And our managing partner said, the best thing you can do is make sure you verify all of your clients' email addresses. So you probably can't read it from there, and that's okay. This is not an example of a text-only email that I think we were referring to earlier this morning as a shining example. This one, it was vague, it was fishy looking. It said things like, you're receiving this because either you or your financial advisor or someone at Edward Jones thinks you may need to confirm your email address, and all you need to do is click this link and give us part of your social security number or sign into your account with your user ID and password. In hindsight, probably the only other bad thing we could have done was just send it from Nigerian Prince at edwardjones.com. So in our haste to get this out, this was sent out to by our branches. They initiated it, sent it out to well over 1 million of our clients, and we spent much of the next year kind of walking this back because obviously trust is so important in our business, and this particular email did not go very far to instill trust in our firm. So.
All right, so those are some very funny stories. I'm glad I don't have enough experience with specific email to crash and burn anything yet. However, through my experience in search and just omni-channel marketing altogether, I do have a multitude of failures that I've run into. So I've thought about a few, and they were small, and they ended up becoming positive experiences for me. So I really dove into like my deepest, darkest failures over the past, let's say, 10 years. So I think one that comes up exclusively to my mind from a content perspective is thinking about at my last company, which was a hotel company. My focus was on SEO, and we had an initiative with local SEO, and click-to-call was becoming really popular, and it was something that we wanted to test. And I always got a bunch of pushback about changing phone numbers within the local SEO for the hotel's profiles. So what I ended up finding was that there was another field that I could put like a secondary number in, and then I could push that information out to all these content distributors. So I did this thinking that it would never catch on with Google. So I push out the information to all the content distributors. And I do this on like a Thursday, come back Friday, everything's okay. Leave for vacation on Saturday. And I'm about 4 or 5 martinis deep on the beach, and my phone's blowing up from work, and I'm not answering it, and my CMO calls me directly. Apparently all the phone numbers for all 8,000 of our hotels had changed to the call center, and our call center was unable to handle all of those calls, which led to just a fury of social media complaints and email complaints from all over the place. So jumped up, kind of got back to the hotel room, made some changes, and was able to fix the issue there. So that was a fun experience. It ended up leading to an overall of how we look at voice and how we manage click-to-call within the company as well. So it ended up really becoming a really positive program within the company as well. But for about a good half hour, I was terrified.
Yeah, that feeling just doesn't go away. So what did you guys do when this happened? There's kind of two parts to this question. Did you send an oops email? Did you message your customers, or did you not? And then internally, how did you communicate? Did you wait till you gathered all the information? Did you immediately send a panicked email to your boss? Like what happened and why?
I can go first. So for the app crashes upon open example, my manager was already aware and in the conversation, and so panic. I felt panic on the inside, but everything operated exactly as it should. We take big swings at Zillow, and sometimes they are successful and sometimes they are not. But we have a culture of failing and failing fast and moving forward. So everybody just kind of wanted to know what happened, why it happened, and what we were going to do to fix it. And other than that, they didn't care who was to blame or anything like that. So what we did, we told our CEO, Tara got that job. Thanks, Tara. So we made sure that everyone knew that this had actually happened. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a meme. It wasn't something that somebody was putting out there on behalf of our company. It was real life. And then what we did is we got on the phone with LiveClicker, and we said, this happened. This wasn't something that we anticipated. I am assuming that it's not something that you guys anticipated either. How can we fix it? Help us make this better. Because we still think that putting dynamic recent reviews in the app email is interesting, and we think it's fun. And how can we kind of protect ourselves from something like this happening again? And so their CTO got on the phone with us. We like brainstormed a different way that we could do it. And so what we ended up doing is they would pull and create these dynamic images, and then I would go through once a week and pick one weekly that would then show in the email. So not on demand, most recent, but still using UGC in a like thoughtful, unique way that does feel relevant and contextual and all those things, but had a little bit more parameters around it. So that's how we dealt with that one. With the floating homes email, that one has a little bit more ramifications in terms of the reach of the response. So we have a government relations team and a PR team and a content team and our team. And so what we have done after the floating homes incident, because that was also running on social at the same time, and so we pulled the social post, couldn't do anything about the email, but we have now basically an internal task force. So as soon as something like this happens, natural, man-made, whatever disaster, or national conversation that might be happening, we can very quickly deploy a task force of people to scan all of our content and try to look at it with a really critical eye. Because I knew that the floating homes email was going on. I was texting my friends in Texas being like, how are you doing? And I never in a million years put the two together. And so I think by having this task force, we'll look at it from a little bit of a different perspective and hopefully not anticipate, but just prevent some of those things from happening again, because it's never our intention to make light of a situation like that.
Yeah, Brian, I think you guys had some similarities with like communication channels and right hand talking to left hand.
Yeah. So on the first example, the giant headshots, there was a probably 10-second conversation about, gosh, do we go back out to clients and say, sorry about your financial advisor's giant head in your inbox? Damage was done. It would only attract attention to it. So then it was a discussion of, do we even do anything about this? I mean, this particular email, fortunately, the open rate isn't that great because the subject line tells you everything you need to know. Your October statement is available. You know where to go get it. But we did decide if there's something we can do, certainly before our chief information officer or managing partner opens his email. He's usually a couple days behind. Let's see if we can fix it before he sees it. So we did work with our IT team to revert our photo cache to get them back to small ones, while we could work with our partners at Epsilon to change the template to scale them appropriately. So we know how to do that now.
That's a learning.
Yeah. You know, on the email verification thing, that was a lot sort of wider ramifications there. You know, once the kind of fishy looking email goes out, that damage is done, and really what we had to do was walk it back and help our branches understand kind of what they had done, because we hadn't done a good job of helping them understand the entire client experience. They heard, verify your client's email addresses, go to this screen, push this button, and they did it. But what they didn't understand was, until your client takes action on this fishy-looking email, they're locked out of online access. They don't get online statements anymore. I mean, we had turned off digital services for a ton of our clients. So really, you know, the correction there was to work through our branches. We didn't want to send another email to all those clients and say, no, trust us, find it, it's okay. You can click on that link in that email. We had to work, you know, with their branches, because those are the people they trust. It was much better to have outbound phone calls from our branches than a follow-up email.
Definitely. What about you, Richard?
So what came out of the mistake that I had made was the backlash really came not from the customers who were trying to book hotels, but the hotel owners themselves, right? Most of the hotels are franchisees, right? So they came to us and wanted to know why, their revenue was down directly into their hotel for 3 days, and we had to explain that, and that's never a fun conversation. I feel like franchisees are just always yelling at you no matter what, whether it's good or bad. But what I really learned and what came from that was how to run a real enterprise test. So what we did from there is we realized there was an opportunity to really hone in our marketing efforts and get some attribution and maybe make more money from that as well. So we teamed up with the call center, we teamed up with the franchisee group, and we found 100 hotels out of 8,000 who probably just were small hotels. The hotel owner who vacuums the floors, runs the front desk, serves breakfast in the morning, who don't have time to answer the phone, and we came up with a value proposition for them and said, let's run this test for you. We think it can make you more money. After running it for 3 months, we looked at some key performance indicators that weren't so much conversion rate or your typical marketing stuff, but were we actually making the hotels more money? And we looked at what was called an average daily rate at the time, and we saw that the sales agents in the call center were better at upselling hotel rates and more nights than the actual hotel owners themselves. So we were able to build out this program. We then tested it against another subset, and we kept growing the testing group from there. This test ended up running for 2 years, and then ended up becoming an overall program within an overall call program within the company that franchisees actually pay the brand for at the moment. So it ended up becoming this really big program and a huge win for us overall.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And to tie back to what Kristen and Amanda were talking about this morning is that ownership of the mistake and then turning that into, well, what can we learn from this? One thing I always try to instill in my team is it's never really a failure if we learn from something. If you just tell me, it broke and I don't know why, then okay, that's a failure. But if you can say, I did this thing, it didn't go the way I expected it to, XYZ broke, and this is what we actually learned from that, then that's incredibly powerful information for us to continue to build upon and to continue to build our program upon. So as I look across the panel, any other learnings or things that were positive that you guys think came out of these failures or learnings?
Yeah, just to go off of what came even after Wyndham, any type of design or user experience that I'm developing now, I'm always thinking mobile first, right, as we all are now. But the more that people are using their mobile devices, the more that phone calls, especially at the local level, are increasing as well. So people don't really have they're on the move. They don't really have the appetite to complete a transaction or a booking or a binding online. They don't, or maybe they just don't understand completely, so they'd rather call and speak to somebody. And these numbers are increasing year over year, the number of phone calls that are going to businesses. So I'm constantly figuring out a way, like where's the click to call button going to be on the landing page, on the email, how are we going to integrate that and drive more? AmVenture is a company that I'm part of now within the AmTrust Financial umbrella. If you went to our website, amventure.com, we put a click to call button in the lower right hand corner of the phone. So it's as closest to a righty's thumb, right? There's not many lefties out there. And that increased conversion by like 30% just putting that there. And we're seeing those numbers jump up substantially as well.
So I'll say for us, the example, painful as it was with the email verification process, it did sort of put some teeth into what we in marketing had been saying all along, that this experience matters and what stuff looks like matters and how it reads matters. And we had butt heads with our IT teams over time, and ultimately we have very rigorous usability testing. We have very rigorous QA testing on things, but in our world we've got severity 1 through 4 defects. Nothing can go out with a severity 1 or 2 defect. Anything deemed cosmetic used to be a severity 3 defect or missed requirement. So in the rush to get this thing out, we weren't able to make it look right. We weren't able to include some of the personalization, like your name and your advisor's name and things that would have helped with trust. And that stuff's not deemed a level 3 anymore. So,
Nice.
So
That's a win.
You know, painful, but and we do have now more evolved client experience team in our marketing group and a user experience team in our IT group. And after a couple trips to the 10th floor to meet with our managing partner about this one, we're going to make sure that the client experience is at the top of the requirement list.
Awesome. Jamie, anything else you want to add?
We didn't stop. We didn't pull. I mean, we pulled the email temporarily until we could put a fix in for the app one. But it didn't stop us from innovating. It didn't stop us from trying new things or personalization or dynamic content in emails or anything like that. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me as I was sitting there being like, is this the end of my email career, is to keep going. And I think, you know, in some of those very dark times, we can think like, no, like I'm just gonna take a step back. I can't do this anymore. At least I did. But I'm here. Here I am, and I kept going. And I think that's a big win too.
Definitely. So before we get to some questions, I want to quickly run down the line. I know for me, the feeling never goes away of you have to hit send on an email. I don't do it very often anymore. I did have to do it at 9 o'clock this morning. And it's still like, close your eyes and hit the send button. It just never goes away. What about you guys?
Not for me. I actually have a rule on our team that we always schedule for a few minutes out, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes out, and nothing changes. Like, just never immediately deploy. Because it always gives you that like few minutes of buffer that you either need to freak out or blow into a plastic or a paper bag or like walk away. I've also done that. I've deployed emails and just left the building.
Yeah.
Yep, I've done that.
Yeah, for us, all of our email campaigns are scheduled. I know folks will appreciate this. You know, when you did your very first email campaign, everybody was looking at it. Everybody was around the keyboard when you hit the send button and whatever. These days, there are so many campaigns going on all the time. I'm not even on the team that sends a lot of these emails anymore, but I'm still on the seed list. I just like to see them. But my email inbox is constantly full of test emails and real emails because I'm a client, and I can only tell if it's a test if it's got a financial advisor named Abe or Dilbert, and then but if it says Matt, that's my guy. So when I pull up the emails and I see Matt and there's something wrong, that it's the real deal.
And that's when you have that panic moment that we all are very familiar with.
I'm afraid to hit the send button on personal emails, so I delegate the email the send button.
That's one definite approach. Okay, so does anyone have questions for our panelists or myself? I definitely have lots of examples too.
With some of your own mistakes that you want to share, but either one.
Oh yeah, if you have examples, we'd love to hear them. Come join.
Hi, my name's Tara. I work at Zillow with Jamie, and I know how we do this at our company, but I'm curious about the rest of the panel and also the room. The win to send the either apology or the sort of oops, we messed up. Some cases it's obvious, like, I don't know, a wrong URL or a wrong offer code or whatever, but it's important, I think, for my teams at Zillow to be the authority, actually, and when we send the apology, in some cases it draws more attention to the problem. And so usually we'll send someone in that's sort of like the yes or the no, and it's important, I think, that we're if not the decider there, then at least a voice in the conversation. So I'm curious about others, either panel or others, handle that conversation internally.
Yeah, I can speak to not from Avo, but from classmates in Intellius, and the decision was ultimately mine as to whether or not we would do it, though, you know, our conversion team would be like, yeah, can we send an oops mail? I heard they like drive a lot of sales. I'm like, calm down. I don't know if we really want to bring this up. Though there were times where something was broken, like an unsubscribe link was broken. We had to resend that. There's no avoiding that kind of instance. So for us, it kind of depended upon just what actually was broken. And then we got to be the deciding factor in that.
For us, the first test is there a regulatory reason we would need to resend this email? If we accidentally told the wrong people their statement was available, we kind of have to make that right and tell the other people don't mind. But then the other part of it is if this is really going to have an impact on client experience. You know, so most of the relationship the major part of the relationship our clients have is with their financial advisor. And I mentioned before, our industry is paper intensive. So we've said we don't want to take the problem that we already have in their physical mailbox, which is just loading up with stuff, prospectuses and confirms and whatnot, and transfer that to their email inbox. So we are pretty intentional about when we're going to send an email. So it has to be pretty egregious for us to go back out and do an oops. So.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Arthur with eDataSource. I used to be with an ESP. I had an e-commerce client who really was very clever. They were mailing every day. So one of their favorite mailings subject line was, "Oops, we made a mistake." There was no mistake.
Yeah.
So they literally used the mistake, and to be honest with you, they saw an uptake in the actual open rate. I unfortunately gave their name as a reference for Dell, and they saw that email and they said, "So you're so good, why are you making mistakes?" And I then had to explain that was their
strategy.
Their strategy.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that, and I'm curious as to, I don't know if anyone will admit to partaking in that, but I've definitely heard of that kind of, oops, we made a mistake, and it was like an on-purpose typo. So, Kristen?
Yeah, piggybacking on that, like last week, or during Black Friday, Brooke Linen did one where it was like clearly an intentional mistake, and I don't know if you guys saw it, but if you didn't, it was the email, and that they had made it look like the intern Mark was forwarding it to someone to have it approved for the big Black Friday sale, and it was 2 days before, and it said like, please click on the links to make sure everything works. So excited about our big sale, and like they had used the forward and the subject line, like they made it look like a mistake, and as an email marketer, I was offended. As someone who makes mistakes, they don't get credit they don't get to win from that. Yeah. But a lot of people on Twitter were like, "Oh, this is genius, it's brilliant," but I don't see how it's any different from just the forward subject line. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I saw that actually came up in the Women of Email group that a bunch of us belong to, and I saw that and like my whole heart just like cringed. It was like, God, I have been a part of a legitimate mistake, and I know that like pain that I went through and that my team goes through when that happens, to then play off on that and try to capitalize on that. I don't know. I don't personally feel very good about it.
Yeah, we had an internal Slack conversation pretty in depth with our team about it. I think most of us decided it was just kind of icky, like just not necessarily putting your best foot forward. And they could have run a campaign where they promoted the sale itself, and it could have been really successful and just upfront and honest.
Sorry, less a question, more an amusing email mistake story. So,
love it.
100 years ago, I worked for, Ray Costa, Flatiron Media. Back in the early 2000s, I worked for an online health and wellness company, and they had really a subscription model to their business. But what they did was, for everybody who registered but didn't buy, they would keep an ongoing sort of keep you live, keep you engaged program by sending them a recipe of the day. Fantastic, right? I'm going to remind everybody this is in 2002 when email delivery was very easy, right? So they had a very large database. And we had a partnership with a company that will remain all recipes that was feeding in the recipe content. And this was just done via API pull, right? And no one looked at it. So I was there for about 3 or 4 months, and I had the wonderful chance to send 10 million people a recipe of the day, and the subject line was varmint stew, because nobody had checked the feed.
Wow, that's a...
Yeah, it was awesome.
I wonder what was the response rate like? I mean, I might have opened it.
The response was interesting, both internally and externally, right? So we had a fun game of fix the problem, not the blame, internally. Externally, the open rate was higher than it had been in some time, and some people had called with questions about how to prepare it, so that's where we are.
Learning. Any other stories that people want to share? Amanda?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I actually had a very recent, huge mistake, because some things happened. So a suppression list didn't work, so I ended up sending more people an email that they had previously gotten to go to a survey that I found out several days later was broken. So I both sent people to a page. I sent people an email that they had gotten before to a form that they could not fill out. And so what I actually ended up doing is I ended up working with the stakeholders and coming up with a custom experience for those specific people, because it originally was a survey that, depending on their answer, we could follow up with another survey in a month. So what we're going to do with those people is in the middle, so in about 2 weeks, we're going to combine both surveys and say in the email, hey, we know that we sent this to you. I'm not sending it to the people that we sent it to twice, though, because they don't need another email from us. But saying, you know, there was a problem with the previous one. Thank you so much for your patience. We still would like to hear from you. So here is this survey, and we're going to combine both of them so that they don't have to get another email from us. So it's really thinking about how it impacts the people that you make the mistake on. Because you don't want to inconvenience them by making them read an apology and then still have to do a bunch of stuff.
Totally. So to wrap this up, because I think we are running out of time. Oh, more back there. Never mind. We're not running out of time.
Hi, Alan Levy, Alchemy Sell-Up. Going back one row to the conversation about using apology in the subject line. So it's pretty much off-brand to use an apology excuse and say the intern or something like that. I think most companies would say it's pretty off-brand. What we do with a lot of our clients is we'll use oops, sorry in a subject line because it gets a high amount of opens, but we'll throw in something, sorry you missed our sale last week, sorry you did something, in the content of the email. So you're getting the opens, you're getting the smile from the person when they open it because it's related and the subject line is related, and you're seeing that all the way through you're getting the clicks and the revenue. So it's really important to and another piece, just going back to subject line, right? Sorry, thank you, devices that work really, really well. It's very important to look at your unsubscribes when you do that, though.
Yeah, definitely. I think
if there isn't a lift, you're in good shape.
I can't remember if that came up in one of our conversations or a different conversation, because I feel like this topic comes up all the time, is just watching your unsubscribes with all of this, too, and having that be a factor that weighs in if you decide to do something.
One last one? Yep. Della from Alchemy Works. I just wanted to remind everybody not to forget triggers that don't go out. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
And the biggest mistake I know of was a regulatory requirement to give 90 days warning that was set on an automated trigger of a price rise. Ooh. And so all the stockholders, all the shareholders were informed that the price was going to go up. Shares had gone up as a result of the increase in profitability and all of that kind of stuff. And for something like 90 days, they didn't realize that the trigger was not going. So please don't forget your triggers when you think about mistakes.
It's a great point. I have been a part of challenges with trigger emails, and that is a great point. So to wrap it up, a couple of things. Learn from us. You're not alone. That sinking feeling, it's something that we all feel. I love Jamie's don't immediately deploy, 5 to 10 minutes. Real-time image loading can help, though, if you're using something like Live Clicker or Movable Ink. You're able to make changes after the email goes live, and that's a really powerful thing. The checks and balances piece, when I was at Classmates, we actually had a concept of a peer review. So before an email went out, somebody else on our team, or we had a couple other people on other teams that could help, they would peer review the content for you and kind of give you that sanity check of, yep, everything looks good, or hey, I think you missed this one little tag or something like that. And then national context matters. We kind of heard that with Kristen's example with the dress, with Jamie's example with the hurricane, kind of different ends of the spectrum, but then national content or context really matters when it comes to email and what else is going on in the world around you. And then, curated UGC is really your friend. It kind of helps you still continue to deploy good UGC, but maybe there's a little bit of extra checks and balances in there. Anything else you guys want to add? All right. Thanks, guys.
Libby, Rich, Brian, Jamie, great work. Thanks very much, guys.